Just when you thought tonight couldn't get any more dramatic for the Celtic fans, a statement has just dropped from Dermot Desmond, the majority shareholder, as you say, which is significant in itself because we don't hear from him too often. Yes, he's the majority shareholder, but a lot of Celtic fans always point to the fact he's absent and you don't hear from him. But the nature of this statement is incredible. It is a real attack almost on Brendan Rodgers and some of the things he said and done. I'll skip through as much of it as I can. It is particularly long. He acknowledges Brendan's contribution, and then from there on in, it is just a real defence of the club. And like I say, almost an attack on Brendan Rodgers. He says he wants to express his deep disappointment at the way the past several months we brought Brendan back. It was done with trust and belief in his ability to lead the club. Unfortunately, his conduct and communication have not reflected that trust. They go on to talk about Brendan Rodgers' contract, which was up at the summer. He says in June, both Michael Nicholson, who's the CEO, and I expressed to Brendan we wanted to offer him an extension, long-term commitment. He said he'd need to think about it. Yet, in subsequent press conferences, Brendan implied the club had made no commitment. That is simply untrue. He then details meetings with Brendan Rodgers about December last year and in the summer with dialogue in between about strategies and approach. Again, another big debate is about who signs off on signings. There's always a feeling that Brendan Rodgers hasn't been backed by the Celtic board, but Dermot Desmond says every player signed, every player sold was done so with Brendan's full knowledge, approval and endorsement. Any insinuation otherwise is completely false. His public statements about transfers and operations came out the blue. At no point had he raised these concerns, and it really does go on to just try and disprove everything that Brendan Rodgers has said. He said that once Brendan Rodgers made the comments publicly, I tried to address them directly. We met for 3 hours at his home in Scotland. Despite ample opportunity, he was unable to identify a single instance where the club had obstructed or failed to support him. The facts did not match his public narrative. Regrettably, his words and actions have been divisive, misleading and self-serving. They've contributed to a toxic atmosphere around the club and fueled hostility towards members of the executive team and board. Some of the abuse directed at them and their families has been unwarranted. So Dermot Desmond essentially blaming Brendan Rodgers for the toxic atmosphere that the board members have had to be on the receiving end of. It is remarkable. Every word of this is remarkable. And it just goes on and on. It talks about the desire for shared success, but what's failed recently was not, and this could be one of the real key lines, what's failed recently was not due to our structure or model, but to one individual's desire for self-preservation at the expense of others. Scottish football specialises in dramatic statements, but this might be one of the best we've ever seen. Yes. It just goes on to finish and say, we're greater than any one person, focus on restoring harmony, strengthening the squad, and so on. Absolute blockbuster.
That's a proper cape.